Hey, my name's TC Burr. Welcome to Yet, a podcast created to encourage you to get your goal or idea out of your head and into reality. On this podcast, you'll hear stories, encouragements, tips, and ideas to help you write your book, start your business, launch your podcast, or whatever it is you hope to accomplish. Because it's not that you haven't done it, it's just that you haven't done it yet. Hey listeners, welcome to today's episode of the podcast. On today's episode, I want to encourage you in your goals. And I want to specifically encourage you, if you're working on a goal, especially a new one, to get it out in the open. Tell other people about the goal that you're working on. I remember the first time I told people that I was writing a book. I was in a Zoom meeting with about 20 other people, and I had this feeling in the back of my mind. We were kind of at the beginning of a meeting, and some of the folks didn't know each other, and so we were doing kind of this icebreaker thing where it was like, hey, tell everyone your name, how long you've been here, and maybe a couple of interesting facts or one interesting fact about yourself. And I had this thought in my mind that you should tell them you're writing the book. Like you've been working on it and it's still relatively new, but this would be the first time that you've actually said it out loud outside of, conversations with my wife or those closest to me. And I wrestled with that internally until it became my turn. And then I decided that I would go ahead and share. So I said, hey, my name's TC. I've been here for, X amount of years or whatever. And the fun fact about me is I'm actually writing a book. And when I said that, I was looking at all these different squares on the Zoom call, and I could visually see the way that people reacted. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I want to first encourage you, if you're working on a goal, to tell people about it. Now, I know not everybody agrees. I actually was listening to a podcast recently where the speaker said that, hey, sometimes it's good to keep your goal to yourself for a while. And I think I agree in theory at the beginning. Right? When your goal is brand new, if you have an idea or something comes to mind and you think this is something that I want to pursue, maybe let it simmer for a little bit. And I mean like maybe a day or a couple of days until it kind of grows legs and starts to evolve and get solidified in your mind. Because you don't want to invite criticism or critique too early while it's still being developed. Think of your early goal as kind of like a seed that's been planted in your mind, and it grows into a tiny sapling. And at the beginning, you kind of have to nurture it and really keep an eye on it and protect it at all costs. But once it gets a little bit of a root system, I think at that point, it's time to bring others in. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go on social media and broadcast it to the entire world. You can do that if you choose, and at some point you probably should. But early on, you should find a group of people who are close to you or just in your network, who you can share this news with. One of the reactions that people have when they think about bringing their goal out into the open is it's scary. Like it's terrifying at times to take this thing that you're thinking about, that you're working on, especially if you've invested a little bit of time and energy and emotion and poured yourself into this thing. What if people react to it? What if people say, oh, that'll never work? Or what if it just doesn't resonate with that particular audience? So there's definitely a risk. You're definitely being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. And to that, I will say a couple of things. Number one, if you create anything at any point in any category, you are going to open yourself up to critique. There are going to be people who, for whatever reason, don't like your thing, whether it's your company, your book idea, whatever it is that you're working on. They may just look at it and say, I don't know if that's going to work. There's always going to be haters out there that just kind of try and put your thing down. And listen, that's fine. That's part of it, right? But there's also people who need the thing that you have. The idea that you're bringing, the podcast that you're thinking of, the book that you feel like you have to write. There are people in the world who need your perspective and your idea. And so don't be discouraged by critiques. Critiques happen to everyone who has ever created anything. That's part of the risk that comes with it. The other thing that I would ask is, when you start working toward a goal, is it something that you believe in? If it is, keep working on it. Don't worry about what other people say, because if you believe in it and you recognize that there are others who will value the work that you're doing and who, more than value, who actually need what it is that you have to offer, you will persevere. And if you realize that you don't believe in it, it could be that you just need some encouragement, or it could be that maybe this isn't the thing for you. And in that case, you had the freedom to trash it and move on to something else. But I do think it's important, once you establish that goal, that you get it out in the open. You say it, you bring it up to other people. Here's what happens when you say those words out loud. I will never forget that first time when I said, I'm writing a book. It felt at the same time completely foreign and totally natural coming out of my mouth. I couldn't actually believe that I said it once I said it, but I was looking at those Zoom squares on the computer screen, and I literally could see people's reactions as some of them, they ever so slightly just kind of raised their eyebrows or nodded their head one direction. And I could tell they had this kind of look that was saying, yeah, okay, sure, you're going to write a book. And I get it. Like, I don't think they meant to discourage me. And honestly, I didn't think that much about it, because the reality is, like, people all the time say they're going to do something and end up not doing it. So no harm, no foul, right? But I could visibly see those people who reacted. And then there were others who you could tell they smiled a bit and they kind of thought, oh, that's cool, but didn't really go any further. But then there was another group on that call, and these were the people who their eyes lit up and they leaned in, and you could see something was resonating. They didn't know anything about the book. They didn't know how far along I was with the book, but just that idea that I was creating something, you could tell they started to lean in. And I even had people, some on the call and some afterwards, say, hey, what's it about? Where'd you get your inspiration? Tell me more about the book. And I realized right then that these people were going to be allies for me. These were people who were going to encourage me and spur me on and provide accountability. So when you get it out in the open, the first thing that happens is it legitimizes the thing that you're doing. It makes it real, because up until that point, it could be denied by the rest of the world, because it's this thing that you're working on in silence and in private and in your home after hours. But once you bring it out into the open, once you get it into the light, now it's become known. People know what's going on, and it legitimizes it. It certainly did that for me, because up until that point, it was just kind of, I could have easily written it off as, oh, this is this cute thing I'm doing on the side. But now people know about it. Now I've said it out loud and it's real. So it legitimizes and makes your goal real. The second thing that happens when you bring your goal out into the open is it identifies and flushes out your allies. So again, I could see on that call those people who leaned in, who asked questions, and who showed genuine interest. They were the people that I could tell fell into the kind of general demographic of who might end up being my readership, my target audience. By the way, those people, many of them have followed up with me even months later. Randomly, I will see them at work or at a social event, and they'll say, hey, how's the book going? What progress are you making? I'd love to read it once you're ready. And man, for somebody who's a writer, those types of comments mean the world to me. So if that's you and you've encouraged me in that way, thank you so much for that encouragement. And that kind of goes into the third thing that happens when you bring your goals or your ideas or your side hustle out into the open. It invites encouragement, feedback, and accountability. And these are three things that I think any side hustle or any goal has to have if it's going to survive. You have to be able to get encouraged. I think that perhaps the biggest reason why more people don't take action on their goals is they don't have that missing ingredient of encouragement. They don't have someone in their corner saying, I believe in the thing you're doing. I know that it's important, and I know that the world needs what you have to offer. If you don't bring it out into the open, people don't know that you're doing it. There's no way they can encourage you. It also invites feedback. And I don't mean feedback in the way of criticism. I mean real, honest feedback where if you share something with someone and they can thoughtfully consider it and say, I think that's a great idea, or have you thought about this angle? Those people who are your allies are going to ideally give you honest feedback that's constructive and helpful, even if it's not exactly what you want to hear. And it invites accountability. Like I said, I didn't ask any of these people to follow up with me, but I've had many people come up to me and just check in and say, hey, how's it going? How can I encourage you? And even just the question has been such an encouragement. So the homework for this podcast episode, if you're listening and you have a goal that maybe you've been working on in your home at night or on the side and nobody really knows about it, I would love for you to find the courage to share that with someone close to you. Maybe it's a group of people at work. Maybe it's your friends in your social life. Maybe it's a member of your family or your extended family. Share your idea with someone because it's going to legitimize what you're doing. It's going to identify who are your allies, and it's going to invite encouragement, feedback, and accountability. And by the way, if you're not quite ready to say it out loud, send it to me. I'd love to know what you're working toward and how I can best encourage you. So send me a note. I'd love to hear more. Thank you to the so many people who have listened and rated and reviewed the shows. I really appreciate all the encouragement you've sent my way, and please keep it coming. If you have questions or guests you think I should bring on, I would love to connect. You can send me an email at yetpodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram, it's yetpodcast, and please rate and review the show on Apple and Spotify. It means so much, and it helps other people connect with these great stories, encouragements, tips, and ideas. I want to read to you a review that I got recently from Brittany R. She says, "Just press play. This is a good one. Awesome podcast with very good practical tips and encouragement to get going with your goals and ideas." Thank you so much, Brittany, and thanks to you for listening to this week's episode. Until next time, keep working on your goals, and I'll see you soon.